What happens when humanity faces the galaxy's deadliest hazard course? Well, if you thought they'd sweat bullets, you'd be wrong. Picture this: a team of alien scientists eagerly watching their monitors as the test begins. This course was built to challenge the toughest of beings from across the stars. Every deadly trap, harsh terrain, and extreme condition imaginable, designed specifically to weed out the weak. Except, when it's humanity's turn, things don't go as planned. Instead of struggling, the humans stroll through the simulations like it's a leisurely weekend retreat. The lava pits? They start warming up their hands. The venomous plant fields? Great spot for a little natural skincare, apparently. Alien viewers stare, slack-jawed, as these Deathworlders turn their ultimate test into a human playground. Just how are humans able to breeze through the galaxy's deadliest obstacles, shrugging off dangers like they're on a casual hike? And more importantly, what does this mean for every other species in the galaxy? The Galactic Alliance had created the ultimate testing ground, a marvel of advanced engineering, assembled across thousands of light years and packed with the galaxy's harshest environments. This hazardous course was designed to evaluate resilience, strength, and survival instincts, each phase meant to strip down even the toughest species to their primal core. The Council's pride, the course had shattered the resolve of warriors, leaders, and even the most intrepid scientists from dozens of star systems, and yet it was humanity's turn to enter. Talar, chief observer and seasoned analyst, adjusted his data module nervously as he considered the legends surrounding Earth's Deathworlders. Rumors had circulated for decades. "I've heard they can survive unbreathable atmospheres without complaint," whispered Zirlek, one of his colleagues. Another chimed in, "And they carry poisons in their blood. Caffeine, they call it. They ingest it voluntarily. Madness." "Legends aside," Talar said, "we'll see the truth soon enough. I imagine we'll catch them struggling in the first phase. Their planet's known for intense environmental variation, but even that won't prepare them for the reactor field. No species has survived past the lava pits without specialized protection." Talar was confident. Humanity, after all, was, well, young. Not yet fully integrated into the Alliance, they were still a mystery to most. Talar's confidence wavered slightly as he watched the humans enter the simulation chamber. They strolled in, almost leisurely, each dressed in light protective gear, chatting amongst themselves. A few even held steaming cups of some mysterious dark liquid. The aliens on the observation deck exchanged glances. Surely they couldn't be serious. A colleague whispered, "I think that's the poison. They're drinking it casually." The lights dimmed, and the first trial, the blazing heat of the reactor field, powered up. Alien scientists braced for the spectacle of humans struggling, but instead something utterly unexpected happened. As the intense heat of the reactor field surged to life, the alien scientists braced themselves for the moment they'd see Earth's Deathworlders sweat, scramble, and ultimately retreat. The temperature rose, nearing levels that had made even heat-resistant species falter. Surely, they thought, humanity's bravado would melt away here. But instead, the humans stepped forward without hesitation. One leaned back, exhaling deeply as though savoring a refreshing breeze, while another stretched casually, arms behind their head. Then, to the aliens' astonishment, one of the humans cracked open a small silver packet, shook out a coarse mineral substance, and began rubbing it on their skin. What is that?" Talar asked, utterly baffled. "They're applying salt to retain moisture," Zirlek murmured, equally bewildered. "It's a mineral exfoliant, a preparation technique on their planet." The humans weren't treating the field as a challenge, but rather as a peculiar spa experience. As the group continued forward, one human reached out to touch the hardened magma rock, running their fingers over it as if admiring the texture. "Ah, reminds me of that geothermal spot back home," one of them laughed, while another grinned and replied, "You know, if they heated it just a bit more, this place would make a fantastic sauna." The observation deck was silent. Then came a muffled gasp. The humans had casually bypassed one of the most dangerous fields in the simulation without breaking a sweat, simply chatting and commenting on the amenities, as if they were vacationing. Talar gripped the railing. This couldn't be happening. Their next stop was the Venomous Grove, a landscape teeming with acidic plants, each equipped to spray a potent, paralyzing toxin at the slightest touch. Alliance scientists had designed this field to demand extreme caution, requiring precise movements and protective suits. The plants were known for their keen sensitivity, with even a breeze setting off their deadly spray. But the humans didn't hesitate. They strode in, not in careful silence, but chatting amongst themselves, examining the plants with curiosity. One even leaned in close, his nose nearly brushing the edge of a venomous leaf. Then, in a move that made every observer's heart stop, he touched it. Talar gasped. Does he not realize the danger? One brush against those spines could end in paralysis for hours. But rather than shriek or collapse, the human simply rubbed his fingers together, examining the residue on his skin. Bit sticky, he noted to his teammate, who peered in closely. Bet it'd make a decent glue substitute, though. Talar could hardly believe his auditory receptors. They're analyzing it, for practical use? The humans laughed, exchanging a few more comments, entirely unaware of the shocked, open-mouthed alien scientists watching their every move. One of the humans pulled out a pocket notebook, jotting something down with a grin. They'd make a great mosquito repellent if we could extract the juice safely. From behind the observation glass, Talar muttered, "Mosquito repellent? They treat this deadly hazard like an everyday nuisance?" He glanced down at his notes, feeling an odd tremor in his hand. He'd trained his entire life to analyze the best of the best from across the galaxy. But this was something entirely unexpected. The humans continued on, unfazed, laughing as they entered the next zone. And the more the aliens watched, the more an unsettling realization dawned. These humans were hardly trying. To them, this simulation, the pinnacle of Galactic Alliance engineering, a test meant to challenge even the most hardened species, was little more than a casual afternoon of exploration. As the reactor field powered up to its intense peak, an oppressive heat wave surged across the simulation area. Designed to replicate the blistering conditions of a supernova-adjacent planet, this field had brought even the most resilient species to their knees. The alien scientists on the observation deck, each clad in temperature-resistant suits just to withstand residual heat from behind the reinforced glass, stared at the humans in anticipation. The humans entered the field with an unexpected calmness. They wore minimal protective gear, light suits with small devices strapped to their waists, emitting a faint hum. In stark contrast to the aliens' armored suits, the humans' attire appeared shockingly inadequate for the conditions. Talar and his team exchanged skeptical glances. One of the humans, a tall figure with a relaxed smile, stretched his arms as he stepped into the heat, visibly breathing in the hot, dry air as if it were a refreshing morning breeze. Beside him, another team member took a sip from a silver flask, her expression entirely at ease. "Reminds me of that thermal vent in Iceland," she commented, looking around with a hint of nostalgia. Their voices, casual and unconcerned, echoed across the observation deck. Talar was bewildered. "Are they reminiscing? This field is hotter than the fusion core of our own star." One human, holding a small silver packet, tore it open and sprinkled a white, grainy substance across his arms, casually rubbing it into his skin. The other humans followed suit, each adding this mysterious substance to their exposed skin. Zirlek, the youngest scientist on the team, peered closely. What is that?" he asked in a hushed voice. "It's a mineral called salt," muttered Gavor, an elder scientist who'd studied human physiology. "It helps retain moisture in their bodies and is used as an exfoliant. They apply it to protect themselves." In sheer disbelief, the scientists watched as the humans, rather than cowering or retreating from the intense heat, proceeded to enjoy it. One human even leaned close to the fiery rocks beneath them, inspecting the hardened magma with curiosity. "This would make a great sauna if they just added a little steam," he mused with a grin. A wave of murmurs swept through the observation deck. Was this simulation malfunctioning? Surely the humans weren't enjoying themselves? Talar's face twisted with confusion, his confidence visibly shaken. "I thought Earth was a challenging planet, but they're treating our hazard field like some sort of vacation spot." The human group moved forward with ease, chatting and laughing, as though the blazing reactor field was a mild annoyance rather than a deadly hazard. Alien scientists sat in stunned silence as the humans breezed through what was supposed to be one of the most challenging simulations in the galaxy. But the next zone, the venomous grove, awaited them. Surely here, the humans would be humbled. The venomous grove was infamous across star systems. It housed fields of lush, towering plants that released a venomous mist capable of paralyzing any creature within seconds. Alien researchers had designed this phase with utmost precision. The plant sensors were so sensitive that even a stray particle of dust could trigger an aggressive spray. All species had learned to tread carefully here, moving with utmost caution to avoid even the slightest contact with the vegetation. Yet, as the humans entered, they showed no such caution. Their steps were casual, their movements fluid and confident. One human stepped up to a particularly ominous-looking plant, its thick green leaves glistening with venom. He extended a gloved hand, and in a move that made the entire observation deck gasp, touched the leaf, pulling his hand back and inspecting the residue left on his fingers. "It's sticky," he observed with a grin. He turned to his fellow human, who leaned in, eyes curious. "Bet this could work as a decent adhesive," he chuckled. "And here I thought alien ecosystems were supposed to be lethal." A ripple of horror swept through the alien scientists. Talar could barely contain his shock. "They're touching the plants. Direct contact with that venom could—" He stopped, realizing the humans were unharmed. They continued on, ignoring the creeping clouds of toxic mist. One human even leaned down to examine the base of a plant, taking notes on a small pad. "These toxins, think they'd work as mosquito repellent?" one human asked, tapping his pen thoughtfully against his chin. "I'd say so," replied another. "Good luck getting it past customs back on Earth, though." Zirlek shook his head in disbelief. "Mosquito repellent? They're seeing our engineered hazard as an inconvenience." One by one, the humans passed through the venomous grove without incident, discussing the plants as if they were no more dangerous than decorative shrubs. The alien scientists, who'd invested years perfecting every lethal detail of this hazard zone, were left speechless. Talar felt a sinking realization settle over him. These humans were treating their deadliest creations like novelties. The humans continued forward, chatting and laughing as they reached the next field, while the aliens on the observation deck watched in awestruck silence. Talar could barely bring himself to record his observations. For every species before, the venomous grove had inspired only fear and respect. But humans, they approached it with casual amusement. With a shaky hand, Talar made a note. Species 117, Homo sapiens, exhibit unique behavioral resilience. Venomous hazards do not apply. Extreme heat exposure, insufficient. In that moment, Talar began to understand that the galaxy's greatest hazard course might just have met its match. And perhaps for the first time, the Galactic Alliance's engineers would need to reconsider what hazardous meant. The humans' progress was unsettling. What was supposed to be a brutal challenge had become inexplicably a leisurely stroll. But now, the simulation's most intricate hazards lay ahead. Zones designed to test not only endurance but strategic thinking, reflexes, and fear response. The alien observers clung to the hope that humanity would finally face a real struggle. After all, no species had ever survived all phases unscathed. As the humans approached the next zone, the gravitonic maze, alien scientists exchanged cautious glances. The maze was infamous. It was a disorienting labyrinth where gravitational fields shifted randomly, creating sudden drops and dizzying changes in pressure that could snap bones if one wasn't careful. Many species had abandoned the course entirely upon encountering it. The humans stepped into the maze, unfazed by the chaotic pull and shift of gravity that greeted them. One of the humans stumbled as the floor tilted beneath his feet, but quickly regained his balance. "Whoa!" he laughed, reaching out to steady himself against a wall. "Feels like a roller coaster. Reminds me of that training exercise we did back on the Mars station." Another chuckled and added, "Good thing we kept up the zero-gravity workouts." A heavy silence fell over the observation deck. The aliens stared, incredulous, as the humans navigated the maze with apparent ease. laughing as they moved through fields of crushing gravity and sudden weightlessness with the confidence of people who had long adapted to similar challenges. Talar's brow furrowed as he watched the humans' progress. Are they enjoying this? The gravitonic maze has caused fatalities, and yet they treat it like an amusement ride? An assistant to Talar, one with an eye for detail, whispered urgently, "Chief, look. Their movements are entirely fluid. They're compensating for every gravitational change as it happens." The humans joked with one another as they climbed, floated, and occasionally tumbled through the maze, showing an unsettling level of control over their bodies despite the ever-changing forces. "This is unprecedented," Talar whispered, almost in awe. But before he could fully comprehend the scene unfolding, a red light began flashing on the control panel before him. "Field instability detected in Zone 7, a voice announced through the speakers, filled with urgency. Talar's attention snapped to the screens. Zone 7 was the heart of the maze, the area with the most intense gravitational flux. The force fields were calibrated to their maximum settings. But the humans' constant movement, their unpredictable paths, seemed to be affecting the sensors in unexpected ways. Suddenly, the gravity in the maze spiked, sending one human hurtling toward the ground. The aliens gasped, but with a twist of his body, the human managed to shift his momentum, catching himself just before he hit the floor, rolling smoothly to his feet with a casual grin. "Looks like they've cranked it up," he joked to his teammate. "Let's keep moving before they figure out this isn't working." Talar's hands shook as he monitored the situation. They're adapting to gravitational anomalies as though they were normal fluctuations. Their reflexes, how is this possible? A nearby scientist, unable to contain himself, muttered, "It's as if the laws of physics don't apply to them." But the humans continued onward, unperturbed, while the observation deck was a mix of awe and rising concern. The maze was beginning to destabilize under the humans' influence, and the alien scientists scrambled to recalibrate it, fearing that if the systems failed completely, it could lead to catastrophic collapse. The humans exited the gravitonic maze, seemingly exhilarated by the experience, but Talar's team was barely able to regain their composure before the humans reached their next challenge, the nebula fog. This phase was meant to simulate an environment devoid of clear visibility, filled with dense mist, erratic electric discharges, and shifting magnetic fields. It was designed to confuse and disorient even the most skilled navigators. As the humans stepped into the thick fog, visibility dropped to nearly zero. Electrical currents crackled ominously around them, lighting the haze in brief, ghostly flashes. In the observation deck, Talar leaned in, his focus intense. This was a psychological challenge as much as a physical one, designed to disorient and induce fear. Surely even humans would be unnerved by this, yet almost immediately the humans demonstrated their unique adaptability. They began using call and response tactics, calling out to each other in quick, clipped commands. "Left by 2, up 3. They moved in a coordinated rhythm, each voice guiding the other, avoiding the bursts of electricity with uncanny precision. Despite the fog, despite the disorienting magnetic fields, the humans proceeded like a well-oiled machine. What strategy is this?" murmured Zirlek, watching them in fascination. They're synchronizing verbally. No species has ever tried that before." One human called out, "Heads up, watch that magnetic surge on the right." Another replied, "Copy that, moving left." Their casual exchange was completely at odds with the ominous environment around them. They moved with the precision of a team well-versed in hostile situations, their voices steady and calm. Talar was nearly speechless. Suddenly, one of the humans let out a cheer. "Hey, looks like we're getting through faster than expected. I can already see the exit." Another laughed. "Not too shabby. Thought we'd have to take it slow, but this is like navigating back home in a snowstorm." A ripple of shocked silence filled the observation deck. The humans exited the nebula fog zone in record time, unscathed and unfazed. For them, it was as though they had merely navigated a familiar terrain, a minor obstacle on a path they'd traveled countless times. But for the alien scientists, this defied all logic. Every zone, every carefully calculated hazard had been meant to challenge them, to intimidate them, but instead, they were thriving. At that moment, Talar felt the unsettling, prickling sensation of existential dread. "This isn't a challenge for them," he whispered, almost to himself. "We built this to push them to their limits, but they're redefining our limits instead." As the humans moved on, laughing and exchanging jokes, the aliens on the observation deck were left grappling with a profound realization. Humanity, this unpredictable, fearless species, was something the Galactic Alliance had never encountered before. And as the humans advanced to the final zone, the council members could only watch, feeling a mix of wonder and trepidation. The humans moved on, breezing through each hazard as if it were a simple obstacle course. But on the observation deck, the mood was anything but light. The scientists and officials of the Galactic Alliance, who had designed this course to test the boundaries of life itself, now felt a creeping, unsettling awe. What they had witnessed defied every expectation. Talar was silent, staring down at his monitor, replaying the humans' reactions to each zone. His entire worldview, his beliefs about resilience, strength, and the very nature of survival were beginning to feel inadequate. How could any species thrive under these conditions with such ease? He replayed the footage of the humans navigating the gravitonic maze and venomous grove, each clip more baffling than the last. The thought gnawed at him. What kind of beings could treat a death trap as a playground? Beside him, Gavor, the elder scientist who had studied human biology, broke the silence. "They don't fear like we do. We've seen dozens of species cower in these very environments. They plan, they strategize, they adapt, but none of them enjoy it. And yet, these humans, they treat it all like some sort of game." Zirlek, the young scientist who had admired the humans' resilience from the start, leaned forward, watching them with an expression that was almost reverent. "Maybe that's why they've thrived on Earth," he murmured. "They've evolved on a world filled with dangers that would make most of us flee. But they don't flee. They find ways to survive and thrive, even in the impossible. Perhaps to them, this is just another Monday morning." Gavor nodded slowly. "Their resilience goes beyond physiology, beyond biology. It's something inherent to them, an adaptability born of relentless exposure to danger." Talar could feel his mind resisting the idea, but he couldn't deny the evidence before him. The Galactic Alliance had always considered itself the pinnacle of evolution, the standard of resilience and intelligence in the cosmos. But now, in the face of these unyielding humans, he felt a pang of humility. "What does this mean for us?" he whispered, almost to himself. "If humans can look at our greatest challenges and see amusement, what does that say about our own survival strategies?" The scientists fell into a deep, contemplative silence as the humans approached the final zone, the quantum abyss. It was the most dangerous part of the course by far, an area where the laws of physics were bent to their extremes. Gravity, time, and space shifted unpredictably, designed to disorient and terrify even the most resilient minds. No one had made it through without succumbing to sheer exhaustion or overwhelming panic. As the humans entered, Talar steeled himself, almost hoping that here, at last, they would show some sign of fear, some indication that even they had limits. The quantum abyss was no mere obstacle. It was a place where reality itself twisted and buckled, a space where even the most seasoned Alliance warriors had lost their nerve. The humans stepped in and immediately felt the shift, a strange pull as the gravity fluctuated, and the very air around them shimmered with temporal distortions. One of them paused, blinking as the world seemed to shift and tilt. "Whoa, that's weird. Reminds me of that VR glitch we had back on the moon base," he said, laughing softly. His teammate gave him a grin. "I know, right? Feels like someone cranked up the gravity and forgot to update the firmware." The aliens were dumbfounded. Here, in a space where physics fractured and reality splintered, the humans were referencing malfunctions. Talar couldn't contain his disbelief. They're comparing it to technical difficulties on their planet? The humans continued on, arms outstretched to feel the subtle shifts in gravity and space, navigating the surreal landscape with surprising grace. They began to treat the quantum abyss like a puzzle, calling out observations, predicting shifts in the environment, and encouraging one another as though this were simply another workday challenge. The alien scientists watched, barely breathing, as the humans, instead of being cowed by the distortions, analyzed and adapted to them in real time. One human pointed to a shifting gravity field, and the team adjusted accordingly, moving in unison. The air crackled with magnetic energy, but the humans simply rolled up their sleeves and pressed forward. "This defies everything we know," Zierlek whispered, his voice barely audible. "They're not only adapting, they're thriving in an environment that shouldn't even allow coherent thought." One of the alien officials, who had been silent until now, spoke up, his tone laced with something close to reverence. "Perhaps this is what it means to be a Deathworlder. They're not bound by the same fears, the same limitations. They exist in defiance of conditions that would destroy the rest of us." Talar's voice wavered as he replied, "But what does that mean for the Alliance? If humans are capable of such things, if they can face our greatest challenges with laughter and curiosity, are we prepared to coexist with a species that looks at survival as a pastime?" The room fell silent as the implications sank in. For years, the Alliance had viewed itself as the ultimate standard of strength and resilience. But in the face of humanity, that view felt fragile, hollow. The humans had exposed something profound, a truth that every scientist in the room now grappled with. The galaxy was not as prepared for humanity as it had once believed. As the humans finally exited the quantum abyss, the aliens watched them emerge, smiling, chatting, congratulating one another. They seemed entirely unaffected by the gravity of what they'd just endured. To them, this simulation was not an existential challenge, but simply another strange experience, another bizarre chapter in their travels across the stars. Talar felt a strange emotion welling up within him, a mix of awe, respect, and perhaps just a hint of fear. He realized with startling clarity that humanity's existence would forever change the fabric of the Galactic Alliance. Their strength was not in brute force or advanced technology, but in an unbreakable spirit, an ability to find humor, courage, and ingenuity in the face of the unimaginable. As the humans waved at the observation deck, one of them called out, "Hey, thanks for the tour. That was some top-notch entertainment." The scientist stood frozen, unable to respond. Talar simply nodded, his mind racing. The humans had not only survived, they had thrived. And as they walked away, laughing and discussing their favorite parts of the course, the Galactic Alliance's brightest minds were left to ponder a single, haunting question. If this was how humans treated danger, then what, exactly, did they fear? In that moment, Talar knew. Humanity wasn't just another species, they were a force of nature, and the galaxy would never be the same. As the humans walked away from the quantum abyss, exchanging laughter and casual banter, the Galactic Alliance scientists felt a sense of unease settling over them. This simulation, meant to test and humble the most resilient beings, had been treated like a casual workout by these Earthlings. But Talar's nerves prickled with a feeling he couldn't quite place, an intuition that something was about to go terribly wrong. Just as the humans neared the final checkpoint, a loud, ominous alarm blared through the facility. The lights on the observation deck flashed red, and warning messages scrolled rapidly across the screens. Talar froze, his eyes widening in alarm. The containment protocols had failed. Something within the simulation's central systems had overloaded, destabilized by the unexpected usage patterns created by the humans' unorthodox navigation through the hazards. The carefully balanced, tightly controlled simulation was about to spiral out of control. "Containment failure in Zone 5, a voice announced over the speakers. "Gravitonic core destabilizing. Full system failure imminent." Talar's heart pounded as he watched the data. A catastrophic chain reaction was unfolding within the heart of the simulation, and if it continued unchecked, the entire facility could collapse. The gravitational fields were spiraling, each field amplifying the others. At this rate, a full implosion could be moments away. The humans stopped, glancing around as they sensed the growing rumble beneath their feet. They exchanged quick, sharp looks, their expressions shifting from relaxed amusement to focused determination. One of them turned back toward the observation deck, his gaze intense. "Looks like you've got a meltdown on your hands," he shouted up at the scientists. Point us to the problem. We can handle this. The scientists were taken aback. This was not their crisis to manage. They were observers, not interventionists. But the humans didn't wait for an answer. Already they had split into teams, each one instinctively scanning the environment, analyzing the best approach. Their demeanor had shifted in an instant, from playful tourists to hardened professionals. We'll need to locate the central control chamber and stabilize the gravitonic field manually, said one of the humans, pulling out a device and checking its readings. Otherwise, this place is going to fold in on itself. Talar's voice shook as he activated the communication line. You can't simply stabilize a gravitonic field. It requires a controlled quantum calibration process. One human laughed, adjusting his equipment. Controlled calibrations are nice and all, but we've got about 10 minutes before the ceiling collapses. We'll have to improvise. Improvise. That word sent shivers down Talar's spine. But the humans didn't hesitate. They moved with precision and confidence, sprinting through the complex toward the heart of the facility, where the gravitonic core pulsed wildly, shaking the entire structure. As they ran, one human pulled a roll of a strange, silvery adhesive tape from his bag, ripping off a strip and handing it to his teammate. Duct tape. Always works in a pinch, he muttered, grinning. The aliens on the observation deck were paralyzed, their minds struggling to process what they were witnessing. Improvising with tape? The very concept defied all logic. But the humans continued with relentless determination, pushing through failing gravity zones and burst coolant lines with ease. As they reached the control chamber, the human team took in the scene. A massive, thrumming gravitonic core, its energy levels dangerously unstable, blue lightning arcing through the room. They didn't flinch. One human shouted out orders to the others, positioning them around the core. All right, we'll need to reduce the magnetic output by 60%. Gabe, see if you can reroute the auxiliary power to that panel over there. Tasha, you're on containment. I don't care what you have to plug, patch, or bolt down. Just keep it from blowing out entirely. The observation deck was silent as the scientists watched, captivated. The humans moved with intense purpose, each action coordinated and decisive. For every surge of gravitonic energy, they found a countermeasure, throwing everything they had at the problem. Tape, makeshift wiring, manual overrides, tools the Alliance scientists would never dream of using in such a sophisticated system. One of the humans glanced at the observation deck, his eyes flashing with a challenge. You're the experts. Got any advice? Talar stammered, trying to regain control of his own voice. The core requires a full recalibration sequence, but you're bypassing every safeguard. That level of interference could cause a core breach. The human smirked, not slowing down for a second. Well, if that happens, we won't be around to regret it, will we? He turned back, his hands moving deftly over the controls as he implemented a risky series of manual overrides. Suddenly, a console exploded in a flash of light, throwing one of the humans back. The entire room trembled as the core's gravitational field spiked to critical levels. But the human, battered and shaken, pulled himself up and continued his work without missing a beat. Talar felt a lump rise in his throat. These beings, they faced mortal danger without hesitation, as if they had already accepted every possible outcome. With one final push, the humans completed their makeshift recalibration. The gravitonic core's wild energy began to stabilize, its blinding glow dimming to a steady hum. The humans let out relieved breaths, exchanging grins and nods. As the field finally held steady, the alarm system fell silent, and the facility returned to an uneasy calm. Talar's team released the breaths they had been holding, their faces a mix of astonishment and profound respect. The humans had stabilized a failing gravitonic core, a feat that should have been impossible without the highest level of Alliance technology. And yet, they had done it with simple tools, brute ingenuity, and an unyielding will. Talar activated the intercom, his voice unsteady but filled with admiration. I don't know how to thank you. That was just another day's work, one of the humans replied with a grin, wiping sweat from his brow. Glad we could help. Though you might want to upgrade those fail-safes. This place is a bit sensitive. For a long moment, Talar couldn't speak. The humans had faced the galaxy's most advanced hazard course, confronted a crisis of unprecedented scale, and solved it with little more than determination and creativity. He realized with startling clarity that the Galactic Alliance had misunderstood humanity. They were not merely adaptable, they were unstoppable. As the humans left the facility, still joking and sharing stories, Talar turned to his colleagues. "We have much to learn from them," he said, his voice a mix of humility and awe. "They taught us today that survival is not merely a skill, it is a spirit, one that refuses to yield no matter the odds." The other scientists nodded, silently agreeing. Humanity had not only passed the Galactic Alliance's greatest test, they had redefined what it meant to survive. And as the humans disappeared into the distance, the scientists knew one thing for certain: they would never look at the universe the same way again. As the humans exited the facility, their laughter and casual conversations fading into the distance, the observation deck remained silent. Talar and his team were left standing in the wake of what they had just witnessed. This day, intended to test the resilience of Earth's species, had revealed truths that none of them had anticipated. Talar replayed the events in his mind. The humans' calmness in the face of deadly hazards, their laughter in the quantum abyss, and their unhesitating willingness to jump into action when the core destabilized. He felt a strange tightness in his chest, an unfamiliar respect mixed with something deeper, almost existential. The humans had treated the galaxy's greatest challenges as if they were common inconveniences. More than that, they had solved problems that no one else had dared face, driven not by protocol or training, but by pure instinct and courage. Around him, the other scientists began murmuring, each trying to make sense of what they had witnessed. Zirlek, who had always admired Earth's tenacity, spoke up, his voice reverent. "Perhaps we've misunderstood the nature of survival," he said quietly. "The humans, they don't survive in spite of danger. They survive with it, as if danger itself is a part of their world." Gavor nodded, still staring at the empty simulation field. "They faced every trial we threw at them, and then some. But not once did they waver. Even in the face of a core meltdown, they didn't hesitate. What kind of beings are they?" Talar took a deep breath, feeling the weight of their words. "They're more than we anticipated," he replied softly. "We thought resilience was about careful planning, cautious survival. But for them, it's about embracing the unknown, about diving into chaos without a second thought." The scientists fell silent again, each lost in thought. For years they had believed themselves to be at the pinnacle of evolutionary strength, the Galactic Alliance's finest minds. But now, in the face of humanity, that certainty felt almost naive. The humans had shown them a new way to understand resilience, one defined not by caution, but by an unbreakable spirit. Just then, the door to the observation deck opened, and Talar was startled to see the humans standing there, smiling. "Thought we'd check in before heading out," one of them said, his voice light, as if they hadn't just averted disaster moments earlier. Talar managed a nod, his voice shaking slightly. You have shown us things we never anticipated. You've changed our understanding of what survival means." One of the humans chuckled, leaning casually against the doorframe. "Survival's a funny thing. Where we come from, we don't just survive, we live. Danger's just part of the journey, right?" Another human nodded, adding, "Sometimes the more unpredictable things are, the more exciting it gets. What's life without a little chaos?" Talar felt a surge of warmth toward these beings, these creatures who seemed to defy every rule of nature. They were fierce, adaptable, unshakable in ways he could barely comprehend. "You've taught us a great deal today, not just about survival, but about courage." The human grinned, clapping Talar on the shoulder. "Anytime, friend. Call us if you need more impossible things fixed, or, if you ever need some duct tape." He winked, eliciting a quiet laugh from the other scientists, a sound of relief and wonder. As the humans left the facility for the final time, Talar turned back to his colleagues, feeling a profound shift within him. This encounter would change the way the Galactic Alliance understood resilience, adaptability, and the very nature of life. Humanity had not just passed their test, they had redefined it. And Talar knew that their presence in the galaxy would bring about changes he could scarcely imagine. The scientists filed out of the observation deck, each one lost in their own thoughts, but with a new respect for Earth's remarkable inhabitants. As Talar watched the humans disappear over the horizon, he felt an unexpected surge of hope. For years, the Galactic Alliance had sought to bring order to the chaos of the cosmos, to create structure and predictability. But in that pursuit, perhaps they had missed something essential. Perhaps the true strength of life was not in avoiding danger, but in embracing it fully, laughing in its face, and emerging stronger. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Talar couldn't help but smile. Humanity, with their strange tools and even stranger spirit, had left a mark on the galaxy. And he knew, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that this was only the beginning. Months had passed since the humans completed the hazard course, but the impact of their actions reverberated throughout the Galactic Alliance. The facility, once considered the ultimate test of resilience, was undergoing a complete redesign. No one would ever forget the day Earth's Deathworlders had redefined what survival meant for the galaxy's finest minds. And as rumors spread, whispers about humanity became tales, and tales became legends. Back at the Galactic Council's research center, Talar sat in his office, reviewing the new safety protocols drafted in light of humanity's test results. Every document began with the same advisory: contact a human if unexpected malfunctions occur. The Alliance had not only reevaluated its views on survival, but also its approach to adaptability, courage, and what it meant to face the unknown. Talar couldn't help but marvel at how much had changed in such a short time. Humanity had left the scientists of the Galactic Alliance humbled, inspired, and perhaps even a bit unsettled. But it didn't end there. Across countless research facilities, scientists were now studying the human factor, trying to understand the biology, psychology, and perhaps even philosophy behind their unique way of navigating life. And in an undisclosed lab deep within the heart of the Council's main facility, alien researchers were conducting experiments on one of Earth's most mysterious substances, duct tape. The results so far defied explanation. Talar had even received a surprising request from one of the senior counselors. Arrange for another encounter with the humans, it had read, simply and plainly. The Council, after years of operating within their own rigid guidelines, was beginning to recognize that perhaps there was more to learn from Earth's inhabitants than they had ever realized. As Talar finished his work for the day, he glanced at a small note he had pinned to his desk, one left behind by a human engineer after the simulation. Written in Earth's chaotic script, it read, "If you ever get into a jam, remember, humans have survived worse. Just think outside the box." He smiled, feeling the strange but growing kinship that many within the Alliance now felt toward humanity. Earth's people had shown them a new path, one that did not fear the unpredictable, but embraced it with curiosity and humor. As he left the facility and gazed up at the stars, Talar felt a renewed sense of wonder. The galaxy, vast and unpredictable, had become a little brighter, a little bolder with humanity's arrival. And though no one could predict what the future held, he knew one thing. With beings like the humans among them, the galaxy was in for adventures beyond imagination. For humanity, it seemed, had just begun its journey, and the stars themselves awaited.